We need to empower doctors and patients. And Joe, you talked about that 14 years ago in Congress, empowering patients and doctors to make decisions.
We don't want to put the government, we don't want to put bureaucrats between a doctor and a patient.
The Democrats' emerging bill raises taxes, it rations care, and puts bureaucrats instead of doctors and patients in charge of medical decisions.
I don't think a bureaucrat should be between a patient and a doctor. See, I don't want to be that
excuse
bureaucrat.
Me, I think that's exactly where you are
in Washington to be that.
We can accomplish health care reform while keeping patients and their doctors in charge, not bureaucrats and politicians.
The Democrats want this almighty federal government, which doesn't do anything very well except national security, and maybe a couple of other things. They want them to come between you and your doctor.
No government between you and your doctor. The Republican Party and conservative politicians have been running on that message, on that proclaimed conservative value forever. They did not just invent that in the last election when they made health reform and the idea that it would put the government between you and your doctor when they made that the focus for last year's election. The slogan that Republicans don't want the government getting between you and your doctor, it is a slogan that goes way back for them, and it has worked for them. What are they going to do with that message in the next election? What Republicans have done with all of the seats they won in the last election is that they've made 2011 the year of the most aggressive rollback of abortion rights since Roe versus Wade. What are they going to do with the "we're the guys who don't want the government getting between you and your doctor" message now? Now that Republicans in legislatures from Kansas to North Carolina to Wyoming to Maine have spent 2011 proposing and passing into law bills to have the government forcibly intervene between you and your doctor under pain of prison. Forcing your doctor at your doctor's appointment to read you non-medical government-mandated scripts. If you look at the law passed by Indiana this year, the script that state government is forcing doctors to read to you includes medically disputed information written by politicians. It is quite possible, it is reasonable even to expect that your doctor does not believe the information in that script is true or medically accurate. But the state government of Indiana will now force your doctor to read you this information while the legislature has crammed its way into your doctor's office with you anyway.
We don't want to put the government, we don't want to put bureaucrats between a doctor and a patient.
The big intrusive government quality of the anti-abortion Republican governance of this year is something we have reported on before on this show. And it is something some small government conservative Republicans in places like Wyoming, even in places like Florida, have been recoiling against and rebelling against. But those few dissident Republicans are really swimming upstream on this. And now the great anti-abortion ambition of Republicans in 2011 is complicating not just the big government, small government message that Republicans are really going to want to keep on running on. It is also complicating some of the even more basic conservative values they say they are for, the things they say define them as conservatives and as a Republican Party.
We need to return to the Reagan years. We need to have fiscal conservatism. We need less government. We need less regulation.
Let's reduce burdensome regulations that serve no purpose other than to insert more government into the lives of citizens.
Government rules and regulation and red tape.
Burdensome government regulations, costs, or red tape.
Continuous overregulation by this government.
I think that all of us can agree on one thing, and that is, if you're going to do something, don't do this. Don't give a new power to the regulators.
I'm calling on Congress to enact a regulatory cooling off period.
This idea is probably the most focus grouped, most finely honed, bumper sticker ready Republican message of them all. Republicans want less regulation, right? In Kansas this week, Republican Governor Sam Brown back there signed into law sweeping new regulations. They target the few remaining abortion clinics and providers that are operating in that state. The new extra regulations in Kansas there will regulate where doctors providing abortions can physically practice medicine, where they will be allowed to put their practice. The new regulations will regulate the number of people and even the gender of the people who the new regulations say have to be in the room while an abortion is being done. The government has set up new regulations for exits and for lighting and for bathrooms and for equipment for the clinics, unannounced inspections, annual licensing, a whole new agency with authority over abortion clinics. From a down with regulation, cut the red tape conservative Republican legislature and governor has sprung a red tape manufacturer's full employment program in Kansas. These kind of things are called trap laws, punitive regulations designed to make it anywhere from really, really hard to impossible for abortion providers to keep their practices open. From the We Hate Red Tape Party, the prescription for these trap laws is death by red tape. This legislative session, Republican governors have also signed trap laws to regulate abortion clinics out of existence in Indiana, in Virginia, and in Utah. So competing with the less regulation thing, what's the only other values message that might be more successful than that for the Republicans? More famous, more focus grouped, more clear, that they're more proud of, that Republicans are even more consistent about than the we hate regulation message? What's the only Republican values message you hear more consistently from them than that? It's we want less taxes, right?
Lower corporate taxes. Don't raise taxes, lower taxes.
No one should have to suffer under a tax hike right now while we're hovering around 10% unemployment.
Raising the tax rates, to me, is completely off of the table.
Everything should be on the table except raising taxes.
The safest thing for America would be to have a provision passed this fall that said no tax increase of any kind in 2011.
I don't want to raise taxes.
Republicans hate taxes. Nothing could be clearer. Republicans hate taxes. On May 4th, every single Republican present in the House voted to raise taxes. To raise taxes as a means of restricting access to abortion. That was H.R. 3, a bill that raises taxes on health insurance as a means of making abortion less available. They want to restrict abortion rights so badly that in the great anti-abortion Republican overreach of 2011, they have defied and undercut and given lie to their own supposed value that they don't want to raise taxes. They have defied and undercut and given lie to their own supposed value that they want less regulation. They have defied and undercut and given lie to their own supposed value that they just want the government out of your doctor's office. The whole next year is about defining what the two parties stand for. The remarkable and radical abortion politics of this year in the states, that is not something that is separate from that national conversation. That ought to be part of that conversation.